As we prepare to cross the halfway point of 2016, it's important for us to level set where we are in clean energy. Let me ask Fatih Birol and Michael Liebreich to the stage to help us set the scene. And to introduce them, let me ask Mary Wenzel to the podium.
Good morning, and welcome to San Francisco. On behalf of Wells Fargo, we're pleased to be here with you all, and we're pleased to sponsor this convening and day 2 of the 2016 Clean Energy Ministerial. At Wells Fargo, we are strong advocates and believers in the benefit of public-private partnership and multi-stakeholder collaboration. We've heard that theme on the stage this morning. We heard it from President Obama. We're thrilled to be here with all of you to leverage our collective influence and develop new partnerships and strategies to address this critical environmental issue and challenge of our time. At Wells Fargo, our primary goal in the area of environmental sustainability is to accelerate the transition to a lower carbon economy and help reduce the impacts of climate change on our customers and communities. And like many of you, we are working towards this goal on several fronts, leveraging our influence across our value chain to create and advance positive change. I'm pleased to share with you several goals today and progress in our journey. In our operations, we have set an ambitious goal to be powered by 100% renewable energy starting next year in 2017, with a transition to procuring new sources of energy by 2020. We've set a goal to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions in our operations by 45% by 2020 from a 2008 baseline. In our business, we support clean energy innovation and finance a wide variety of companies in the clean technology sector who manufacture, market, and develop solutions to enable greater sustainability and resource efficiency. And some of you are out there today. Great to see you. To date, we have deployed more than $52 billion to environmentally beneficial businesses and have invested over $4 billion in renewable energy projects. The projects we invest in that we own in whole or part in 2015 generated 10% of the wind and solar energy in the U.S. In our communities and through philanthropic investments, we support leading nonprofit organizations, universities, incubators, and accelerators focused on clean technology and innovation. And we look for opportunities to collaborate and partner. In fact, we're excited to announce round 3 of one of our strategic initiatives, the Innovation Incubator, a 5-year, $10 million partnership with the Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Lab. This partnership provides capital and technical resources for early-stage entrepreneurs working on commercial building technologies. They get to be validated and tested at NREL's facilities and then have the opportunity to be beta tested at a Wells Fargo facility. There are currently 10 companies in the program, and in this round, we hope to add 10 more entrepreneurs and clean technology companies. I encourage you to visit the technical showcase next door. You can meet several of the entrepreneurs we're funding and learn more about this program. Climate change, water scarcity, and other environmental issues are creating elevated risk across our portfolio, but they're also driving tremendous innovation that is benefiting our customers, team members, and communities in countless ways. The solutions are out there, and with the active participation of the public and private sectors, governments, and civil society, I'm confident that we will transition to a lower carbon economy. There's a saying that informs our tagline: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So as I introduce the scene setter's presentation this morning and kick off day 2 of our discussions, let's think about how together we can explore opportunities for collaboration and solutions for the critical challenge of climate change. Thank you.
Good morning. ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fatih Birol. I am the head of the International Energy Agency, and I'm going to tell you a few things, what we think the global energy challenges are, and how the outlook looks like if my slides come in the picture. Perfect. So, first of all, before looking at the future, where are we today? 2015, last year, has been a historical year for the fight against climate change from the energy perspective. Why? At least 3 reasons. Number one, if you look at the last 30 years, 3 decades, economic growth and the emissions were increasing hand in hand. Economy increases, so does the emissions. But 2014 and 2015, global economy grew about 3%, and emissions did not. Very good news. We saw a divorce between the economic growth and the emissions. I would say this was a happy divorce because we can grow, economy can flourish, but the emissions can be under control. This is the one important good news of last year. The second one, about 90% of all new power plants connected to grid last year were renewable energies. 90% renewables, 10% all the rest put together. And renewables mainly driven by wind, followed by solar and hydropower. So as such, we had a very good basis. And on top of that, in December, we had an agreement in Paris, thanks to the leadership of all the countries here, as well as others. But I should note the leadership of President Obama, President Xi, together with other countries to push the agenda forward and coming with such an important agreement. One key element of the Paris Agreement was, in addition to setting an ambitious goal of well below 2 degrees, there was a bottom-up approach. Every country made its pledges. I am going to reduce my emissions by 2030 by employing this and that policies. Such a bottom-up approach was extremely important, and as such, it is important also to see how the countries do compared to their pledges, compare the commitments. It's an area that we as the IEA work a lot. Another important item or a message came from Paris was innovation is critical. In other words, acceleration of the innovation is critical if we want to reach our climate target. If you look at the picture today, where we are, if you look at the picture today, this is the one up, at the above. You see the current trajectory, and the one going down is our 2 degrees trajectory. And in between, you don't see the legends here, but in between you have policies which can bring us from our current trends to our 2 degrees trajectory. What are those policies? Important ones. 2 of them are critical: renewables and energy efficiency, but followed by others according to countries, carbon capture and storage, nuclear power, fuel switching. For example, in this very country, United States, we saw a major achievement as a result of switching from coal to natural gas. So we can do it. It can be done, but we need to deploy technologies which are already with us, and also at the same time, we need new technologies to come into the picture, and energy efficiency renewables playing a critical role. So this is a nice slide with a lot of colors. It is nice to show it like this, but what is happening in the real life? It is what we are interested in, and what we have done is to see different technologies, to test them, their current progress vis-a-vis our 2 degrees target. Are we doing okay, or are we doing not okay? The overall message is the progress is rather slow, and it does not by any means guarantee us to reach our targets. There are some technologies which are not doing very well. For example, carbon capture and storage. Very sluggish. There is only one good news, a big good news in Canada, Boundary Dam, but except for that, not many good surprises. Coal, inefficient coal-fired power plants. If you look at it, ladies and gentlemen, 2014 and 15, still more than 30% of coal-fired power plants connected to grid were subcritical coal-fired power plants with very low efficiency. And those power plants will be with us 40, 50 years if they aren't retired before. There are some technologies which are doing more or less okay, such as nuclear power. We have seen in 2015 10 new nuclear power plants connected to grid, most of them being in China, but also in Korea and Russia. And also, biofuels did not give very good signals as well. 2 technologies which get the green light, which were very good in terms of the growth. One is the electric vehicles, 2015, more than 70% growth, and we have now exceeded 1 million electric vehicles mark globally. Excellent news. And also, in terms of the onshore wind and solar, it was an excellent year. So overall, we are lagging behind. There are some good news, especially on the electric cars and some of the new renewables. Now, some countries are critical, given the size and the importance of some countries in the global energy picture, global CO2 emissions, and their efforts in terms of renewable energies and beyond. And some countries, like the others, made their pledges, INDCs, and we looked, what do they reach if some countries fulfill their pledges? We see that their PV generation, solar generation, increases by a factor of 30, and their wind increases by a factor of 7. And the carbon intensity, CO2 intensity, declines by 45%. A major achievement, definitely, but still it should be considered as a first step, because it will not, fulfilling these INDCs will not bring us to 2 degrees, but definitely a very important step forward. Now, before finishing my words and giving the floor to my dear colleague, Michael, I wanted to bring to your attention one aspect, since we have the privilege of hearing the governor and many mayors yesterday, our publication, Energy Technology Perspective, this year, we released it yesterday, focused on one issue. The issue of cities, role of cities in the fight against climate change. Why? Very simple. If you look at the trends today, a big chunk, about 70% of the emissions come from the cities worldwide. Plus, within those, emerging countries, cities play a critical role. Buildings. More than 50% of all new buildings will be built in the next 35 years will be built in the developing world. And what kind of codes, building codes, they will apply will be critical, because a building has a lifetime of 75, 80, 90 years. So we can lock in the absence of those building codes. Or again, in the buildings, lighting, very important. Air conditioners, huge growth we expect air conditioners, especially in Asia, but also in Latin America. And at the same time, 80% of all air conditioners today are manufactured in Asia. If they don't have the right efficiency standards, once again, we are going to use more than necessary electricity, and therefore the emissions will be increasing substantially. So our appeal is, why we have all the governments here, we also need to underline that the fight against climate change may need to be centered in the measures that we are going to take in the cities, both in terms of the buildings, but also in terms of the transportation sector. So let me finish our presentation by saying that we believe last year was a historical year in terms of data, what happened in terms of the markets, and in terms of the political agreement of Paris. It was a major development, and we think there is a very strong political backing that we have never had in our fight against climate change before. There's a very strong momentum, and the cost of the clean energy technologies coming down, the so-called the framework conditions are very positive. And we believe cities can play a critical role bringing the emissions down with the existing technologies, such as applying the efficient standards, but also pushing the advanced technologies to penetrate the markets, such as the electric cars. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, now this is time for a coalition between the national governments and the local governments and industry, and we believe that the international cooperation on energy has never been so vital. And as International Energy Agency, we are ready to work with everybody here to support your efforts, and perhaps finishing by once again thanking all the CEM ministers yesterday, proposing the International Energy Agency being the host to CEM Secretariat, a great honor for the IEA, and I hope we do our best in order to deserve your confidence of the governments, of the industry, of all the stakeholders. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatih. Thank you. And I think we are all very lucky that Fatih has taken over, to have a leader like Fatih in his role, the IEA, and also now his work with CEM is going to be very important. Let me see if I can build on some of the remarks that Fatih made. And I want to start in Paris. Paris was historic. It gets a lot of criticism for not being binding and not being this and not being that. It was historic. And you know, if the challenge that we're facing is analogous to climbing Mount Everest, then you know, Paris and what we're doing here today, this is base camp. We've now reached base camp. Everything before was simply traveling to base camp. We're now there ready for the assault on the summit. But Paris, really, what we've seen in our business, Bloomberg New Energy Finance, is, I wouldn't say the phone's ringing off the hook, but we have seen new interest from new players, new investors, new industrials, et cetera, et cetera. Paris has given a sense of inevitability to the assault on the mountain, on the summit. It's given a sense of inevitability of the shift to clean energy, and that is really invaluable. But let's look at the scale of the challenge. You know, there you see in green the emission trajectory before Paris, the INDCs, you know, it bends the curve. It's base camp. We've done something. We've achieved something. But that is what we need to do. And I looked at it another way. I call this one chart to rule them all. You know, Bloomberg, we're data people. This is one chart to rule them all. You've got renewable energy at the top. That's nirvana. You know, at the left you've got nuclear. Some people don't like it, but it's clean, it's zero carbon. You've got natural gas, top right, and at the bottom, coal and oil. And you go back to 1975, and the size of the pentagons is energy demand, and that's where we were. And as you go through 1980, 85, 1990, you start seeing nuclear, 95, 2000, 2005, 10, 2015, you essentially see the shape of our energy demand doesn't change much. Where do we need to go? Well, this is what we think is going to happen based on our modeling, the Bloomberg New Energy Finance New Energy Outlook model, but this is the IEA 2-degree scenario from last year. And part of the IEA's work is incredibly valuable in showing us what needs to happen to climb this mountain. But look where we need to be sometime in the second half of the century. That's where we need to go. That's what the mountain looks like. So we have a huge challenge ahead of us. Now, we can either be intimidated or we can be excited. The good news is that investment in clean energy, energy efficiency, renewable energy, power storage, and so on, this doesn't include hydro and natural gas and some other things that are very important, nuclear, very important, but it reached a new record in 2015, a new record despite, you know, after all of the financial crisis and the huge price drops. And it did it despite the fall in oil and gas prices. This is base camp. This is a huge achievement. Everybody said investment would stop. Investment didn't stop. 90% of new capacity added last year to the electrical system was renewable. Renewable out-investing now around the world in dollar terms by 2, 3 to 1, everything else combined. And geographically, the investment in clean energy has spread over the last 12 years since I've been running New Energy Finance, now Bloomberg New Energy Finance. Over the 5 years of CEM, you can see that this is a global transformation. And in fact, last year, more was invested in the developing world than was invested in the developed world. So any thought that renewable energy is a rich country plaything has been well and truly dispelled. I just come back from South Africa, and I spoke at at African Utilities Week, and I pulled out my old script from the previous time when I spoke to a ministerial in Johannesburg 5 years ago, and it's great to see South Africa, one of the supporting countries, one of the key members of CEM, of course. And this is what I found from 5 years ago. I stood up and I said, don't believe it if anybody tells you that renewable energy is expensive. Wind is 6 cents. Solar is only 17 cents. You need to be planning on these energy forms in your energy mix. That was 5 years ago. Beginning of this year, the world record was 3 cents for wind in Morocco and 4.8 cents for solar in Peru. And as soon as I found that nice picture of Paddington Bear that you see there, another project in Mexico was announced. Of course, another great CEM member country, 3.6 cents. And then in Dubai, in the Emirates, I think it was the first or second host of CEM, 2.99 cents bid for solar. This is going really fast. And what's a record project this year, what we see becomes the median project 2 or 3 years down the line. It's our old friend, the experience curve. Wind and solar both had these very consistent cost drops. But there's something else as well. Policy. In energy, policy is destiny. And what we see here in red are markets that relied on subsidies, on state setting of prices, and in blue, market mechanisms, and that's 2000. And what we can see over the years between 2000 and 2007, we can see more and more policies supporting renewable energy, all tracked, of course, by REN21, who've just produced their annual report this year. Now, what happens in 2008 is interesting. We start to see what I call the march of the price signals, because you've got to not just support clean energy, but it has to be not just effective support, but efficient. And there we see by 2016 all the countries with reverse auctions. Reverse auctions over a 2-year period tend to push the prices down by about 50%. You get cheap, clean energy when you get price signals in the system. Now, I've been involved in Sustainable Energy for All. Rachel Kite's somewhere in the audience. And I joined partly because I knew that this was going to happen. I knew that the costs were going to come down. I plot experience curves, and I knew that solar, like this, was going to transform lighting in the developing world, in Africa, in India, those places without access. But it's now not just little lanterns like that, which are great. You can get rid of kerosene. We're now getting larger systems. We did some work with the World Bank. We think by 2020, there'll be about 100 million households with distributed energy systems of some sort. And again, that's the importance of this group, because the solar transformation in energy access is actually an LED transformation. It's the 3-watt light bulb that enables you to light a home with a little solar panel. And the Global Leap program, the CEM Global Leap program, is now trying to push that down and say, well, can we have a 3-watt fan or a 10-watt television or a 30-watt or a 20-watt refrigerator? These will be transformational, energy efficiency together with renewable energy. There's another miracle. I call this one the Miracle of Musk, which is going on as we speak. Fatih gave sort of the green light to electric vehicles. I'm glad, because we believe that as well. And it's not just Tesla. Every major manufacturer is working on the $30,000 car that does 200 miles, and that will be transformatory as well. We think that by 2040, as much as half of all new cars will be electric. Now, they need to be, because a lot of the progress that we've seen that enabled that amazing deal in Paris was about cost reductions in renewable electricity. But you know, if you look at electricity, that's that little green bit at the bottom. And electricity is penetrating into the market, into the energy market, into primary energy. But very slowly, very slowly. There's heat, there's transport, etc. Current trends, electricity gets to 100% of electricity demand by the year 2340. So we better hope that heat and transport also either are electrified or go renewable in a different way. And I think that's one of the things that this group needs to work on going forwards. The challenge is huge. You've got to balance the grid as you do all this, variable renewables. You've got to balance it, not just seconds and minutes, but also days and hours, and very difficult, summer, winter. Summer, winter is really hard. That's a real challenge. or a real opportunity. You can be intimidated, you can be excited. We're here in California, the home of innovation, the home of entrepreneurship. We're going to need a huge amount of entrepreneurship and innovation. So I'll leave you with a few words from another great American entrepreneur, Craig Venter, on the point about should you be intimidated or should you be excited. I'm not sure whether the optimists or the pessimists are right, but I do know this. It is the optimists, and we're all optimists here, that's why we're here. It's the optimists who will get something done. Thank you.